Hi there, I'm Mark. I'm the Lecklenbrook Project Officer. I'm also working with Sustainable Wantage on a biodiversity project for Wantage. And at this time of lockdown, green spaces are obviously a really important resource for us to be able to use. It certainly does me so much good to be able to get out and just go for that exercise walk, and I tend to choose a nice green space to do that. We're here this morning, you might recognise the setting. We're at the Wantage Park, and we're just going to have a little bit of a walk around and see what we can see and hear, and maybe some points of interest that might encourage you to come and look for similar things when you're here and make your walk more interesting. So just by the entrance here, but I've just spotted this really nice old silver birch. Silver birch are great for an awful lot of insects. They've got a real craggy trunk, as you can see, lots of sort of nooks and crannies. At this time of year there's quite a lot of insects that use them. And just behind me here is a line of lime trees, and there's a chaffinch up there at the moment singing away, which you can hear, which is really nice. It's a really important time of year for birds. They're all trying to set up territories and looking to breed, so a lot of them are singing. It's really nice to see all these dandelions have been left. The grass has obviously been cut a little bit less, probably because of the lockdown. But you know, a lot of people hate dandelions in their lawn, but they are absolutely brilliant for wildlife. So when you're out on your walk, one thing that's always good to do is just actually stand still for a little while and just listen. Try and use your other senses for a little while. So the sort of things you might hear up here are skylark, because we're just on the edge of the fields, goldfinch, greenfinch. There's also a lot of blue tits and great tits, song thrush, and possibly mistle thrush. So we're out in the middle of a big open area here on the park, and it is just massive expanse of grass really, which is usually mown and of very little value to wildlife. And I do think the park could be improved a lot by adding a little bit more variation into this area. So some pockets of nice dense scrub for nesting birds and insects and stuff to use. Even small mammals would use them. Maybe a pond. I think it would be lovely to have a pond somewhere within the park. It's quite a dry environment up here for wildlife, and a pond would certainly attract birds to have a wash and a drink. Dragonflies and bees love to come and have a drink too. Water's really important for them as well. So yeah, I do think we could make it an even better green space for people and for wildlife. Right, we're down at Lock's Lane now, where the ford is that crosses the Lecklenbrook. It's a really nice little quiet spot, really pretty. Lots going on up above us. It's a really nice spot just to come and stand and watch the water, see if you can spot a brown trout and just enjoy your tranquility. So at the moment we're here in Betjeman Park, almost in the centre of Wantage, and it's a lovely little green oasis. I love coming and just spending a few minutes sitting in here in the shade of the trees, listening to the bird song. You can hear the Lecklenbrook gurgling away in the background. Just a really tranquil spot. So standing here, I'm completely surrounded by cow parsley, which I know the people that look after Betjeman Park get a little bit frustrated about because there is so much of it. But it's really good for wildlife. It's actually a member of the carrot family, believe it or not. It has these little nice white umbellicas, like a little umbrella on the top, which is really attractive to a lot of insects, and particularly hoverflies. And the leaf's interesting too. You crunch it up in your fingers and have a sniff. It's got a sort of aniseedy smell to it. So and it's pretty, you know. So we've got some red campion here, which is really nice colourful one, nice splash of pink, again good for the insects. And some green alkanet, well, it's got a blue flower, called green alkanet. I think it was actually used as a dye back in the old days, and I think that's where the name comes from. But again, really good for pollinators. There was a little honeybee in here when we arrived. This patch of comfrey here is absolutely covered in bees. There's at least 2 different species flying around I can see. I think the really black one is called a hairy-footed flower bee. And he doesn't seem very popular with the other ones. They actually knock him off the flowers. I'm not sure on the other species, but yeah, it's alive with them. Lovely bit of colour, and yeah, really nice to see it this time of year. So there's some really nice mature trees in Betchman Park here, and it's really nice to see this one absolutely covered in ivy. Now ivy is one of those things, a lot of people actually cut it off because they think it's bad for the tree, but it's not quite true. Trees cope fine with ivy. As trees get really old and start to struggle and the canopy gets thinner, then ivy gets more light and takes over. But it's usually because the tree's already struggling. But it's so good for wildlife, and it's a really late flower, so it's a really late source of pollen. So when you get to sort of November and there's not much about, this is so important for wildlife. And it's also just provides so much cover and canopy, so a lot of birds nest within it and build the nest right in under the ivy against the trunk of the tree. So it's really important to leave it if you can. Really nice to see a bit of deadwood left as well. This is obviously a tree that was dying or getting sick, which they've cut partially down and left it as a sort of standing deadwood monolith, which is really good habitat for a lot of things. Woodpeckers absolutely love them. It's a sort of classic bit. You see them drilling a hole in there, but a lot of insects use them too. And bats, if there are cavity bats, will use them as well. So really nice to see that it's being managed in that way, very sympathetically. We tend to be too tidy and we clear all the deadwood away and we cut everything down if it looks sick and move it away. But really a woodland should have a lot of deadwood in it to keep it healthy. So I think it's got a really nice balance here at Betchman Park. And you've got this little performance area here that's open. It's used for all sorts of things. So it's really good for community and people use, but it's surrounded by all of these trees and vegetation and wildflowers, and brilliant for wildlife. So it's just a really rich place to come and sit and enjoy, and for me that's what our green space is all about.